Every parent knows that navigating your child and their friendships can be really tricky, to put it simply, especially when it comes to dealing with a bully. Here to help us unpack all this very difficult issue is psychologist Dr. Kristine Berrett. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You know, one thing I thought that was really interesting that you always say about this topic is that using the term bully can evoke feelings of overwhelm and that it can even, in fact, be overused, right?
Well, we're really sensitive to the term bullying, and we're trying to be proactive, I think, as a community to resolve issues of bullying that seem to be increasing. But then you have the situation where kids are saying all the time, I'm being bullied. And they're using the term for anything where there's a disagreement. And so you have to be careful, you know, that it's not overused, but you also have to be careful of situations where it's underreported, when it's really a true situation of bullying.
And when it really is. What are some other words we can give our children, other language, when it's maybe not bullying, but it's...
Well, it could be a conflict.
Okay.
Right? It can be a conflict. It can be a dispute. It can be anything. And you have to watch out for when it's repeated. That's when it becomes a situation of really, when it becomes bullying, is when it's repeated, or when there's a likelihood that it could be repeated. And you want to look for physical aggression. You want to look for intimidation, especially if it's, you know, again, repeated intimidation. And what you want to see, what you want to look for when it becomes a situation of bullying is when the power differential increases, right? When it's not peer-to-peer, we're not in the same group, we're not on the same level, but all of a sudden one starts to have dominion over the other, and that's when you become more concerned.
Got it. That is key. Let's talk about family culture. That makes a difference when it comes to bullying and bullies?
Absolutely. If, you know, parents have a lot of power in helping their children to see the world in different ways. And homes where, for example, a family says, okay, we're going to establish a situation of unity. We want a culture of unity within our home, where I watch out for, let's say we have 5 people, I watch out for 4 people, and everybody else watches out for 4 people. Rather than focusing on my own needs, if I'm watching out for other people, then I'll see, okay, if someone else is hurting or being hurt, I can step in and watch out for them. And we want to establish that kind of culture where we all have each other's back. We're all in this together. If you're hurting, I'm hurting. It impacts us all. And so if you have a family culture that's really affirming of each other and watching out for each other, that reduces the likelihood that that child will bully. It decreases the likelihood that that child will be bullied because they won't stand up for it on a repeated situation, and increases the likelihood that that child will watch out for somebody else who might be bullied.
I mean, you can create that family culture in a place of work even.
Absolutely.
And help reduce sort of stressors as adults too.
Yes. So you want to take that idea of that we all watch out for each other, that
we're
we
all a family.
Community. Yeah, we're all a team, and you want to take it in your home and build it there where there's not belittling happening. And you want to spread it to whatever group you're in, your classroom, your peer group, your work situation, so that you have this feeling of oneness, of connection with those you're with, and then there's no place for bullying. I mean, it becomes, you know, anti your culture that you've established.
Is that how you build bullying-free communities? I mean, how do you make that work? Because sometimes this bullying nature is inherent in human nature.
Well, it's been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
Well, it starts with one talking about bullying, that it's not tolerated in this place.
Right.
The second thing you have to do is create a group identity, right? That we are in this together. If you just talk about bullying not having a place, then everyone starts tattling on everyone else, and it becomes, you know, just pointing fingers, and it's still divisive. But what you want to get to is to a place where it's a we. We're in this together. And schools that can do that will really have a great school identity. There's a decrease in bullying happening there.
So advice for parents when, let's say, you know, you hear something, your child comes home and says this has happened, and then you start to realize, okay, my kid is really scared or really uncomfortable. How do you react constructively as a parent? Because, you know, our first reaction is to want to react. Yeah,
we want to protect. We want to make sure it's stopping. And it is important to respond with intent. Right? You don't want to just brush it under the rug. You want to show that you are, you know, interested in what's happening and gathering information. But it's paramount that parents model being calm. And gathering information. Right? This is a teaching opportunity for your child. And the goal is, you know, if bad things happen, kids do dumb things. You want to take a bad situation and how help your child become stronger through it.
Yeah.
And learn resiliency, learn conflict resolution, learn positive social skills.
Yeah.
And so you can take this opportunity and step back and say, okay, let's get a wide perspective. Let's look at what's going on. What did they do? What is going on? When is this happening? What might be going on for the other child involved? Whether your child is the perpetrator or the one being the victim. So you want to gather information on both sides and then ask your child, well, what do you think would help? What do you think would help resolve this situation? If you can get to a place where the child who is, maybe the perpetrator is feeling isolated or hurt or rejected, and then perpetrating or being, perpetrated on by somebody else and continuing that chain. You want to build a feeling of cohesion and resolution rather than jumping to getting revenge. That's
getting revenge or getting rid of someone or removing yourself from the situation. That
revenge just is a contagion for bullying, right?
Yeah.
You get revenge, then somebody else gets revenge. Groups start talking about other groups. And
it spreads. How do you empower your child?
Okay, so a situation came up with my son where he was being bullied, and I talked to him about the relationship with the kids that were bullying, and he had started to hang out with these kids, and it was a situation where they were trying to control him. And we talked about ways to talk to the child to see if you can let them know that you're not comfortable with this, how to stop it. And then if that didn't work, we talked about other friendship groups that he had been a part of and I asked him, I made this question, I said, would these other kids have ever done this to you? And so he made an attempt to talk to kids that were doing the negative behavior, and it didn't stop. And he chose to leave the group and connect with pro-social kids that were positive for him.
Well, that's great that option was available. How and when do you know it's time to step in and protect?
You have to be aware of the developmental skills of your kid.
Okay.
At the same time, you don't want to step over them. So you want to involve them in coming up with a solution. That solution may involve you talking with parents. It may involve you talking with the teacher.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But you want to empower them to kind of think about how to resolve conflict.
Yeah.
You don't want your child coming out, because what happens in bullying is when you're in a bullying situation, you feel weak, you feel powerless.
Yeah.
And the last thing you want to do is take over and solve the whole thing and have your child still feeling vulnerable and weak.
Yeah.
You want to take the situation and build them up. You want them to be part of the solution, brainstorm what could happen. How could this benefit the whole class? How could this benefit the whole school if this bullying is no longer happening? And involving them in that process helps them to become a problem solver.
Right.
And that's what you want.
Versus, not giving them any power, which is just not a great life skill. So honestly, Dr. Berrett, thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing all this. It's been a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
We will always need to talk to you about something parenting-wise soon.